I often steer away from topics that deal with society in general, but sometimes I think it's important and relevant to our lives as Afro-descended people. The images we see, especially the ones our children sees, impact our lives in both direct and indirect ways. That's actually why I started this channel to begin with. Today, I wanted to tackle a question that's been on my mind as of late. Does Western culture intentionally promote films and shows that portray black men as failures? What up, African world? It's Home Team here, and welcome back to another video of African history, culture, and worldview. By supporting this channel on Patreon, you're helping in the creation of these videos and contributing to this content. On Patreon, you can find more in-depth courses on African history. And with a word from my sponsors, there's a new social media platform dedicated to educating and uplifting our people. No longer do we have to be censored for speaking our truth. OBT Social is black owned and operated, and a place where you can post your businesses and even monetize your content. You can visit the website at obtsocial.com. Links to everything in the description box below. As a disclaimer, this video is solely based on my opinion and should be taken with a grain of salt. If you're not interested in my personal opinion on social topics, please feel free to skip this video, as most of my content will be focusing on African history exclusively. The purpose of this video is not only to express my perspective, but to also learn from your input. I'm really looking forward to what the African diaspora has to say on this topic, so it can enhance or possibly even change my own view. So let's begin. Like many people in the diaspora, I've been watching movies and TV shows my entire life. As I got older, I began to realize that many of the images that portrayed Afro-descended people did not reflect how I was experiencing my own community. Images of Afro-descended people, specifically the men, was very negative. There are many angles to draw from concerning this, but I wanted to focus on what I believe to be the failed black man trope. Does Western culture intentionally fund images of failed black men? Now, of course, there are some positive images of successful Afro-descended people and black men in general, but what we should be concerned about, however, is balance. And in my opinion, this balance seems to be way off. I'm assuming many people in the diaspora would immediately know what I'm talking about and have no problem with my viewpoint, but some may need a minor example just to get them thinking. So I have 3 examples that I wanted to share. The point of these examples is not to ignore any positive portrayals of black men, but to help spark a discussion concerning the frequency of the negative tropes. In my first example, many will probably disagree with me for various reasons, and we can explore that later in the comment section below, but try and hear me out. Popular culture tends to advance the narrative that Hannibal Barca did not have the phenotype of the typical Afro-descended individual. Whatever your own personal stance is on the matter, this position is generally accepted, especially outside of the African diaspora. Despite the fact that no conclusive portrayal of Hannibal exists, this sculpture is still promoted as the classic image of Hannibal. That being said, the History Channel's decision to cast the black man as Hannibal was very interesting given popular media's track record. So the question then becomes, why would the History Channel take that risk? Was it because they wanted to support diversity in general, or was there another motivation? The reason I think they were comfortable moving forward with this was because even though Hannibal is a legendary figure, in the end, he failed in his goal. And so despite his respected status, his ultimate failure is still in alignment with media's goal of denigrating the image of black men in particular. What I mean is this. Popular culture will support films centered around black men, but as long as the undercurrent of failure is ever present. The portrayal of Hannibal killing himself due to his failure was certainly the cherry on top for that narrative. If popular culture was truly interested in diverse stories and black history, there's no reason why they would not have funded a major film on the Haitian Revolution, or perhaps a film about a founder African king building a successful empire. Interestingly enough, I'm reminded of a meme I saw not too long ago that speaks volumes. This meme stood out in particular because I recall very clearly feeling this way well before I discovered the meme. Sure, it's a joke, but I think it really reveals the bankruptcy of the film industry as it concerns balancing the image of Afro-descended people, the utter failure of showing the full scope of our humanity. It can be a bit overwhelming at times. Now on to my next example. Virtually any movie that portrays a black president. Of course, not all movies that portray a black president are bad, but again, the balance seems to be off. Black presidents in movies and sometimes shows tend to preside over a period during a potential catastrophic event or extremely troubling times. It's almost predictable. Last but not least, this final example is from a more recent show on Hulu called The Dropout. It's a mini-series that documents the story about the fraud biotech company called Theranos and its founder Elizabeth Holmes. Basically, Elizabeth dropped out of college in hopes of creating a machine that could test for various ailments from a few drops of blood. This machine never existed, but she was still able to receive funding. In attempts to invent the machine, many failures took place. The first engineer/scientist was fired and another was hired to take his place. The new engineer/scientist is casted as a brilliant black man. Now, on the surface level, this seems pretty cool. His race has absolutely nothing to do with his role, nor is he stereotypical in any way. Very refreshing. But unfortunately, because we know what this miniseries is all about, he ultimately represents failure, because we know he will not be successful in leading the attempt to develop this revolutionary machine. Now, for all I know, Elizabeth Holmes may have actually hired a black engineer/scientist for her impossible, disingenuous task. I really don't know if that was really truly the case. If so, I have to take the L on that one. But regardless, the failed black man trope seems to be a very real thing, even when we completely ignore the countless slave movies and TV shows that are developed and funded. So my question to you guys is this: if you agree with how I've personally internalized Western culture's portrayal of black men, then what should we do about it? I'm aware that there are about two schools of thought in the diaspora. One being that we should create our own media entirely, and the other is that we should work with the powers that be to bring about change. I think it's important to understand that it's really not about diversity of a role, but diversity of portrayal as well. I don't think either of the two schools of thought are wrong. It's just about what we want our goal to be. I think individuals or groups in our community who are in positions of power or influence need to make clear their stance on this and commit to accomplishing that goal. I certainly would like us to be economically empowered enough to create our own media and films. I personally don't believe we can continue to float in between these two ideologies for much longer. Anyway guys, I've shared my thoughts and I'm really looking forward to hear what you guys think on the topic. I'm really hoping to see some good discussions in the comments section below on whether or not the promotion of black failure is really a thing, and if it is, what we should do about it. If you like these videos and want to support its continued development, consider supporting the home team on patreon.com. The link is in the description box below. Know thyself, remember your ancestors. Peace.